Hi, in this video manual we'll cover fixed ARP operation mode for the BlueARP, and its idea is pretty simple. It makes BlueARP to behave more like a step sequencer, where the generated sequence doesn't depend on the input keys. And to switch to fixed ARP operation mode, we need to change this parameter operation mode on the top panel. ARP fixed input, and we see that some parameters disappear and others change. Like we see this new key 1 to key 5 parameters, which define our input keys for this mode, and they are defined per program. So I can have different set of keys for different programs. Now let's create some simple sequence. Let's go to slot number 4, initialize it, call it sequence V1, we'll use it later in the video, and I'll make a very common for EDM and trance polyrhythmic pattern, like every third step sounds like this. And let's now add some melodic variation, like it will go like key 2, key 1, key 2, key 1, and key 3, key 1. And now I can change these keys. And the other way to change them is to right click here on key 1 and select press MIDI keys up to 5. And now I kind of can press a chord, keys in a sequence, and it will set all my input keys. And I don't have to press all 5, like I can set just 3 keys and leave the other slots unassigned here. And now it sounds like this. So now let's check how it will work with the bass, and I can already play something. Yeah. And a few important notes. Switching from ARP fixed input to the ARP mode is non-destructive for the patterns, but I will lose my key assignments. So if I switch to arpeggiator mode now, I still have this sequence. I can play it the normal ARP mode. But now, if I switch back to ARP fixed input, all these assignments are lost. They are reset to default. I need to set them again. So this is our sequence. Let's turn off kick for a while. Now let's do one trick. Since I'm playing in A minor, I want my sequence to be different on the E chord, which kind of resolves my whole chord progression. And to do this, we first copy this program to the next slot, duplicate. And here let's call it sequence V2. And it will be a bit different. First of all, I want to have different input keys here. It's like E major chord with added C note in the end. And also I want to introduce additional step here, and now it sounds like this. Now let's use chains and chain variations to create this conditional triggering of our second sequence by the E root note. So let's go to chain 1 and first of all initialize all chains to clear all the stuff from the factory bank. And our chain number 1 is program number 4, and chain variation 1 is our program number 5, which should be triggered by the E root key. So let's go to conditions and set condition to root note equals E. And let's check how it works. Should work already. So pressing F, pressing G, and pressing E. So yeah, it works. And let's check together with the bass and the drums. F and E. So yeah, one of the cool things about these operation modes is that although they make BlueARP kind of different plugin for the different purpose, but the chains and chain variations work the same in all operation modes, and you can create scenes or parts of your performance with the consistent logic across all BlueARP instances, working in different operation modes. Now let's check another trick, restart on. Despite the fact that our sequence doesn't depend on the input keys, we can use restart on key to kind of align our sequence start with the key we press. And to make it work better, let's change input quantize to quarter notes, like a more relaxed setting. And now I can do stuff like this, retrigger my sequence. But the tricky thing here is that when I press playback, arpeggiator is idle. It waits for the input key and it will only trigger when I have something pressed. So just like in the default arpeggiator mode. But if I want this kind of sequence retriggering capability, this is the way to go. And let's check that our bass should have the same restart on key, quantize quarter notes, and let's see how it works now. So I can retrigger the sequence. An important thing to mention here is that despite the fact that our sequence doesn't depend on the input keys, the chord detection still works based on the input keys. Like you see, this post filter is fixed. It takes input keys from this fixed list, but input keys pre-filter works just the same way, and the chord detection works just the same way. And this makes it possible, these conditional chain variations based on root keys and chords to work properly. That's pretty much it. We covered the basics. Let me go through the settings just to make sure that we didn't forget anything. The input range filter, it works just the same way, although no kind of much use, because our sequence doesn't depend on the input keys, but it will, if we use restart on key and the key is outside the range, it will not trigger. So it works just the same, but here it has kind of a narrow use just for the restart on key mode. Then input quantize, again, it will work for the restart on key. For example, if I set it to 8th notes, I can restart it like this. So it will define this restart on key behavior. The same about the quantize tolerance. It's quite a long story to go into that now, but you can check the manual how it works. It's mostly for the guitar mode. Arpeggiator doesn't make much sense here, only if the playback in my DAW is stopped, BlueARP has this fake playback on the input key, and if I have it set to latch, it will keep playing unless I switch it to off. Steps, all this stuff is just the same as in the arpeggiator mode. Fixed key doesn't have much sense here, but works just the same. We can use it in the sequence along with our 5 input keys, which are defined per program in this mode. Force to scale works just the same way. Let's make some simple sequence with scales to step changed in a random manner. So now they're chromatic, but I can set it, for example, to A minor. And now it's within my scale. So just can use it just the same way to create melodic sequences. And all this output filter stuff works exactly the same as in the arpeggiator mode. So I think that's it. Thanks for watching. Have fun with BlueARP and see you next time.